I'm going to be joined by Tim Bassford, Creative Director.
Hello. Hello.
So Spinning Clock are a full-service creative agency, which basically means we do loads of different projects for all different clients. So we specialise in 3 different areas: video and animation, digital, which covers websites and apps through to virtual reality and augmented reality, and also events, so anything from corporate exhibitions through to children's media roadshows. We're based quite locally, we're just in Nottingham, and we've got clients throughout the UK and further afield, including Europe and California, and we're really fortunate to have some really exciting clients. So we work with people like BBC, Disney, and government bodies like Public Health England. So today, Tim and I are going to be talking about our roles in general, so what we do as a senior project manager and creative director, some of our favourite projects, and then just finishing off with some sort of advice and insights and things that we'd have liked to have known when we're in your position. So yeah, I'm going to start by just playing our Spinning Clock show reel just to give you a bit of a flavour as to what we're all about. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea as to what we do at Spinning Clock. I'm going to just introduce my sort of role as a project manager, just to give you a bit of an idea as to what project managers actually get up to. So my role is that I look after the project management team at Spinning Clock. And the great thing about being in that team at Spinning Clock is that we work across the whole portfolio of projects. So one typical day might see you working on a strategic branding project for a life science organisation, and then another day you might be working on super experiential events for a children's media brand. In terms of day-to-day tasks, it's basically anything that you need to get done to make that project happen and run smoothly. So anything from sort of scheduling, working out time and resources that you need to make to hit client deadlines, budgeting, so making sure that the project is financially viable, working out logistics, so that could be anything from organising specialist video crew through to working with venues for events and video shoots, and also working with production teams in the warehouse, so working on exciting new props or exhibition stand builds. And yeah, we've worked with some great different teams whilst I've been at Spinning Clock. We've come across some really great prop makers, including one guy called Dick George, who made the first ever Stormtrooper helmets for Star Wars. So yeah, some really exciting people. In terms of how I got into project management, I'd love to say that it was a really easy, straightforward decision, but that's probably not true. I came from quite a mixed background. I studied both creative subjects, so fine art and design, and also much more academic subjects, so English and maths. And to be honest, I never really knew what I wanted to do. I carried on studying art and design diploma, and then ended up studying a degree in interior architecture, which felt like a nice sort of balance between being creative and having a sort of logical, mathematical thinking. And when I graduated, I knew that I really wanted to get involved in events. I really enjoy the idea that face-to-face marketing is really powerful, and the impact that you can have by engaging audiences with brands and messaging at live events. And I also really enjoyed creating really high impact physical spaces, even if it was just for short amounts of time. So when I started working at Spinning Clock, I reasonably gradually made a decision that I didn't really want to be a designer. I actually wanted to project manage things. And I loved being in a creative environment, but I just sort of felt that the role of a designer didn't really suit me. The parts that I liked about working at Spinning Clock was having that day-to-day contact with the clients and being the person that builds that relationship, building a rapport, being that just sort of go-to person to help them figure out what it is that they need. I enjoyed being the link between different teams, so different design and production teams, figuring out how to join the different dots. And just generally, I liked sorting stuff out, making things happen, and being the person that, at the end of the project, got that sort of feedback from the client that, yeah, it was, you worked out our problem and you solved it really well. So just as a really brief example as to how that sort of works in action, we did a project with Wilko where essentially they came to us and said, we want a music video to sell our Halloween products. That ended up in us sort of recceing different venues, working out costumes, employing health and makeup teams, getting together decent-sized crew in terms of camera and sound. Me and Tim had a day out to a local dance studio where we had to review the choreography, so really, really mixed bag. One of the first projects that I worked on at Spinning Clock was Change4Life. So you've probably heard of the campaign. It's an initiative by Public Health England. It's aimed at families with young kids, and it encourages them to eat well, move more, and live longer. It was a really big program, so it's got all different sorts of agencies working on it. You probably saw the adverts on TV with the little plasticine men that were done by Aardman Animation, and Spinning Clock in Nottingham were responsible for running the road shows, so everything from designing them and then actually producing them and installing and running the events. At the heart of everything we did, our brief was to influence behaviour change. So by getting these events designed and installed at locations across the UK, we essentially wanted kids to engage with messaging that was about healthy eating, learning more about exercise, and we wanted them to sign up to the Change4Life initiative and make lifelong choices. From a project management point of view, there was loads to do. So once we'd actually gone through the design process, so we would create everything from physical environments through to individual activities. So for example, we would design pretend shopping supermarkets where kids would scan pretend foods, and it would trigger digital content where they'd learn about healthy eating, and we would create interactive animations where children would use exercise equipment like steppers or bikes and rowers, and they'd exercise whilst interacting with on-screen animations, where again they'd be sort of presented with content that was all about healthy living. Once we'd actually designed all that really exciting, inspiring stuff, the project management team then had to actually produce it and get it out to venues. So we had to get literally everything produced, from the physical environments through to the props, the merchandise, sorting out IT, and obviously safety was absolutely paramount. So we knew that everything that we produced had to be used for at least 6 to 8 weeks, ideally more, and it was going to be used by thousands of kids. We also had sort of practical considerations, so how do we install this stuff in the middle of a festival field? How do we get power to the middle of a field? We had to look after our crew. Tim had a bit of a hairy incident. I think it was one of the events at Bristol where he was filming the event, and yeah, we filmed at all different locations, and some of them were sort of festivals where we had to do overnight builds, and Tim had some sort of Larry guy come up to him and suggest, what would you do if I stole your camera right now? To which I think Tim did the manly thing and grabbed it and ran. And the main thing I remember at Change4Life is that literally everything was yellow. So the brief to us was that the events wanted to be a sea of yellow, and when I went to sleep at night, my dreams were sort of coated yellow. Logistically, again, from a project management point of view, we had sort of 10 to 15 events to manage in around a 6-week period. and all of the venues were totally unique. So one week we might be negotiating vans through muddy festival fields, and the following week we might be at a super clean, shiny shopping centre negotiating with centre management as to all the specific health and safety procedures that we had to follow to make sure that we got everything installed safely and in line with their requirements. It was constant decision making, so we had to make sort of endless decisions from massive through to absolutely tiny. So there was one incident where we had to decide, should we install this event on this beach, or is the equipment all going to get blown over on a really windy day? And then through to tiny things like, actually, do the staff have enough pens to sign the people up to the with the sign-up forms? So I think the key thing that I learned whilst working on this project is how much influence a project manager can have on the success of a project. So in terms of shaping the creative process, so it's all very well, the design team coming up with amazing ideas, but then somebody actually has to carry them out, get them produced and get them installed. So the project management team tend to be the people that say, great idea, but how will that work in the middle of a field and when there's 20 kids lining up waiting to play? And yeah, it was probably one of the most results-focused projects that we've ever worked on. So Public Health England, every weekend after we'd ran 1 or 2 events, they would want to know how successful has the event been, how many people came, how many people signed up. And over the course of us running the project, we had 100,000 visitors and about 45,000 families sign up. And it was genuinely a very rewarding project in that you knew you were helping people make better lifestyle decisions. Another client that we've worked a lot with is the Walt Disney Company. In particular, we have recently been working with the Disney Junior channel. So they have their own channel on TV. They feature characters like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, Doc McStuffins, Sophia the First, and Spinning Clock were employed with producing an event toolkit for them. So again, with Change4Life, as with Change4Life, it was all about designing these events and then running them and installing them. And it was about not only making sure that they visually looked great, but that they were actually carried out strategically and consistently across the whole of Europe and wherever they were in the world. The activities that we designed were all based on character messaging. So for example, if we were running a Minnie Mouse event, it would all be very creative. If it was a Doc McStuffins event, it would be about teaching kids how to look after themselves. If it was Lion God, it'd be about teamwork and bravery. And it was a constant balancing act as a project manager to sort of understand the client's objectives, so what they need to achieve, the results that they need and when they need it for, taking the design team's amazing thoughts and then harnessing those and going to the production team and saying, actually, how on earth are we going to make any of this? So how are we going to make a levitating blastboard or a flying horse? One of the key outcomes of the project was the interactive experiences that we created for Disney Junior. So these were essentially games that we used at events where kids would, with the idea that we wanted kids to strengthen that relationship with characters that they see on the TV and watch so often. So they would be motion control games where kids would use gestures and body movements to take control of the characters and have their own adventures in these worlds that they see on the TV so often. We ran a series of events at, a roadshow through Smith's toy stores across the UK, followed up with a flagship event at Westfield, London, which was really high profile, so about 300 square metres, 2 weeks in a prime location in London, so loads of pressure. And from a project management point of view, we had to not only get the games developed, but actually get this event produced and installed. And we've got a little video just to show you how it went. So one of my favourite parts of this project was taking it and seeing sketches that designers had created, seeing them then go to computer visuals, and actually, as a project manager, be on site and seeing it get installed. It was, like I said, it was a massive build. We had to solve problems like, how do you print a graphic that's 20 meters wide without it having joins in? How do you print a floor that's that big that still keeps the sort of illustrative design that we've designed? And then through, again, to absolutely tiny details. So we had the client on site, and they spotted that in one of the doorways where people came into the space, they could see a series of tiny 1 centimetre screws, and we had to get the production team on site to sort of hand paint these tiny screws to make sure that it didn't ruin what the client thought was sort of ruining the finish of the seamless graphics. It was a massive team effort, and it was 2 overnight builds. We had on-site game developers on the morning of the live event making final tweaks to make sure that it was absolutely perfect in a live environment, and I think I finally got to bed at 8 AM that morning, which was a bit of a record for me. As always, it was hugely results focused. We had thousands of visitors over the couple of weeks that the event was live, and Disney didn't want to do any sort of social media promotion because of the location it was in, but through just sort of natural undercover social media that visitors did. In the first week, one of the visitors got 25,000 YouTube views, and the local Disney store sold out of merchandise, so massive achievement for us. So I'm going to hand over to Tim, just to give you a bit of a, who's going to be talking about his role as a creative director.
Cool. Let's have a drink. Hi guys. My name's Tim Bassford, and I'm creative director at Spinning Clock in Nottingham, as Nicola mentioned. So some of you might have an idea what a creative director is. Some of you might have no idea. What does that mean? How's that different to art director? How's that different to a film director? So I thought I'd start off just by kicking off with what is a creative director. So first of all, your role is to steer the company's creative output. So if you want to be known in your design agency for having dancing pink unicorns on a rainbow in every design, then that's your prerogative. You need to set the bar creatively for the company. So if you want your company to be known for a particular area being really strong, then as a creative director, that's your responsibility to sort of drive that through your team. And in a bigger creative agency, you'll be involved in lots of different medium as well. So the creative output and the quality of that might be across everything from film to events, as Nicola's mentioned, to web, to digital, to other emerging platforms. So that's your role, steer the company's creative output. You're also the gatekeeper of quality. You can see Gandalf guarding the bridge there. So part of your role as the creative director is to make sure that nothing goes out that isn't hitting the client's brief or in line with your level of quality. So part of that will be then going back to the design team and talking through which bits maybe aren't hitting the mark or which things aren't quite good enough. And obviously there's lots of different ways you can tell people things aren't quite right. You have to find your own style, I guess, how you do that. You're also the bridge between management and creativity. So you need to understand the bigger picture about making money and making a business work and the strategy of the business, but also be really passionate about creativity and innovation and pushing boundaries. So you have to kind of have one foot in each camp. And I'm sure you guys know sometimes creativity and making money don't necessarily go together that well. So as a creative director, you kind of have to be accountable for both those sides, getting things super creative, but also being aware you've got to make some money. So one thing I wanted to say as well is you guys are obviously at a stage at the moment where you're probably exploring lots of different mediums, lots of different things you're excited about, and maybe wondering what stage to go on to next. And I think one big thing I just wanted to share is, in my experience anyway, a creative career isn't an A to B journey. It's not like, in some ways, being a doctor, where you go and you study medicine and you become a doctor. there's so many different ways to express yourself creatively in digital platforms and non-digital platforms. So it may be that something you're thinking about you'd really like to go into now, 5 years' time, there might be a new technology that doesn't even exist that you'll then be working in, or you might be really keen on making films, but then that might lead you into something completely different. So yeah, just want to share in like 30 seconds my journey so you can kind of see how I pinged around a little bit. So I actually studied fine art, so with that, the only brief for me really was self-expression, so more commercial stuff. Obviously you have a brief you have to nail. With fine art, it's kind of the brief, in my experience, was express yourself. I then took a year out and lived in Greece for a while and studied at a Greek university, which is amazing, obviously all the culture and all the history of art and that kind of cool stuff. While I was there, I did a load of photography, and the girlfriend I had at the time was an actress, and she was involved with a photography agency doing some headshots, and I found out they got an internship. That was in Belfast, so I moved over to Belfast and did this internship where I was kind of, I was the whipping boy and basically got flogged every day carrying, you know, all this equipment around for the photography agency. But while I was there, I started working with design agencies who would come in and, you know, want these particular photo shoots doing. And I was sort of a bit fed up with the photography lifestyle, and I just thought it felt really sort of hand to mouth and found that really difficult and quite erratic. But when I was chatting to these guys from the design agencies, they seemed to have a bit more of a steady workflow. I like the idea of working with lots of different clients, and I like the idea of this big creative idea as well that you took from start to finish. So after working there, I started working at the sort of very bottom level of a not very good design agency, which I won't say who it was. But while I was working there, I started to work on adverts for medical campaigns. And one of the highlights of my career was making an advert for adult sanitary pants, underpants. That wasn't my advert, by the way. My advert was burnt and destroyed and never seen again. But yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, that was quite literally starting at the bottom, working my way up. So I started in that sort of agency, got a bit of stuff in my portfolio, a bit of work experience, and then I started sort of working in better agencies, more responsibility, learning more and more with the different people I work with. And then all the way through this, I've been really interested in film and sort of making little short films and things on the side. So that was always kind of going on while I was doing my work. Corey, who's actually sat here, will probably remember this when we were filming at a laundrette really early in the morning. We'd managed to get permission. We're doing this short film. And the police got called out because they thought we were all breaking in trying to rob the metal from the laundrette or something. So we kind of got semi-arrested during that short film. Pursuing the film thing again in my own personal time whilst working. I did some stuff with the National Film and Television School, which is really, really cool. Met a lot of amazing people. If any of you guys are interested in film, that NFTS is a really interesting place. They do lots of good opportunities for work experience and things like that. A lot of British Oscar winners come out of NFTS. So then sort of carrying on with the film theme, again, Corey helped me with this project. It's quite a long story, but to cut it very short, entered a lot of film competitions. I'd really recommend that to anybody, you know, not just film competitions, but creative competitions. Put your work out there, get some feedback, get a bit of a profile. So I won this amazing film competition with a modern interpretation of the story of Samson set in the present day. And the prize for that was 30 grand to make the film, and then an amazing trip to LA where I got to meet a load of producers in Hollywood, hung out with David Oyelowo, you guys might know from Jack Reacher, he's in Selma, he's been loads of cool stuff. So got to chat with him, talk through the film. So all of this stuff, meeting all these people working at these different levels, really sort of fed back into the existing day job work I was doing at Spinning Clock. So people I met, I was able to sort of start working with. So a DOP I worked with on the Black Skulls conspiracy now has done a lot of work with us for the sort of more corporate side. So you get that sort of level of quality. But sort of just to say, obviously things are continuing. You guys know about emerging technologies, and so the journey's not finished, and kind of don't know where it's going to go next. But just want to say, you know, bounce all over the place. And I think if you pursue the thing you're really passionate about, you'll eventually get into the groove of what you should be doing. So that's that. So just want to talk about some of our favourite projects, or one of my favourite projects. Recently done this Enabled Your Greatness campaign, which was a really fun one. A client came to us and said, we do stuff in HR solutions, like software. It's really, really boring. Everybody that does stuff in HR, it's all those lifestyle, iStock photos of people in the office just going, hey, I love working, this is great. And they're just saying, everybody uses that stuff. It's so boring. We need to do something different. So we came up with this idea of people in the office have a greatness, and this HR solution software enables their greatness. So you show it in the office, but then you show the cool stuff they do outside of work. So we had a little guy who was a professional wrestler. We had a 60-year-old grandmother who was a thrash metal star. We had a big beer belly man who was a synchronized swimmer. And then we had this lady who was a work-at-home mum who was also a superhero. So I just wanted to show you a little visual effects breakdown thing, because they're always fun. This was done in 5 days by 1.5 people. So you're used to seeing all the blockbuster visual effects breakdowns, so it's not on that level, obviously, because we didn't have millions of pounds to spend, but it's still, I think it's still pretty fun. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, cool. So, yeah, that was really great fun. Did some really funny stuff, like painting on the abs on that guy, even though he was pretty ripped, and determining how much baby oil to put on him so it looked all greasy. So, yeah, that was pretty crazy. Yeah, another cool thing we've got to do recently, we got a tiny little job with the BBC, show development. They just wanted some branding thoughts, and then through that, we've been able to expand the work we do with CBBC, CBBS, in show development. So some of the stuff is pilot stuff, like this songs, stories, and secrets was a concept they wanted to do. They rolled it out. They got all the Lemures involved in it. We did all the branding. We created that sort of special photo booth, video booth thing, and all the identity and stuff for that. Originally, they were going to take that around big festivals and just grab, all the performers and do this fun little interview in there. For whatever reason, that didn't come off, but we had a cool project out of it. Also did some stuff with the iPlayer and this cool little a sketch show, I guess, and they wanted a brand for it. They wanted the motion graphics and that kind of thing. And then Dengineers, which is a really big show at the moment on CBBC. We were involved in initial brand development. I think they had 5 agencies involved in that. We got down to the last 2, but didn't get chosen. And then, yeah, so they've got a different brand at the moment. But again, it's really, really good fun to work on that stuff, because it involves storyboarding, brand, 3D modeling, video, that one spatial sort of design as well. So lots of cool stuff combined. Yeah, and this one was for EEF. So EEF are the trade body for manufacturers across the whole UK. So people like JCB, Aston Martin, Land Rover, Bombardier, all these sort of massive British names, they all belong to EEF. And they have an annual conference, and they get all these big dogs together to talk about manufacturing in the UK and promoting it overseas. And they wanted a sort of inspirational opening thing, because this was just after Brexit, and obviously everyone's starting to get really worried, or what's going to happen to British manufacturing. So they asked us to do a sort of future-looking thing on British manufacturing and why it's so awesome. So we did this. This was really, really great fun. Again, 3D modeling, compositing, all that kind of stuff. And we got some really good feedback off social media from a lot of senior people there. So that was really good fun. Yeah, cool. So just to sort of wind up, I think me and Nicholas wanted to give you 3 sort of pointers of little words of wisdom that we thought, if we were in your shoes, what sort of things would we like to tell ourselves? So yeah, one thing for me, I think, not for everyone, but I think learning software skills is a straightforward part of developing your creative arsenal, as it were. So learn software skills as quick as you can, and go into work, go into employment knowing how to use as much as you possibly can. because I think that's a practical skill that everybody can get on board with. For me, creating great ideas is the hard part. And coming up with original ideas, brave ideas, things that are unique is really tough. And that's how people like Pixar and Disney make huge amounts of money, because they push original ideas and creativity very, very hard. Also be brave and see mistakes and failure in a positive light. A bit of a cheesy quote here from Churchill, but I think it's really powerful. Success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. So I'd just say, like, you know, you will make mistakes, you will mess up projects that you think were going to be really good. Clients might not get what you're trying to do, and you'll feel like you're not hitting the mark. But I think the key thing to be improving yourself in lots of different areas, but certainly with creativity, is from not seeing failures and mistakes you make as a backward step. It's more another way of working out how not to do something, and you keep doing it till you find out the way you should do things. So keep your head up when things don't go right. You know, we've got projects on the moment where it's really challenging, and we keep hitting our heads against the wall with particular clients, but the important thing is you keep positive, keep your head up, and think, especially with creativity, you become so fused with your idea, and it's often a very personal thing. So if somebody criticizes it or doesn't get it, it can often feel quite personal and get quite sort of depressed about it. And I think sometimes if you're doing something amazing, you feel awesome and you think you're brilliant, but then if an idea is not going well, you feel terrible. But I just say, you know, it kind of goes up and down like that. So just keep upbeat, be brave, and keep pushing onwards, and keep being positive, and also listen to what other people say about your stuff. Relationships and making connections is key. So having lots of skills and being super creative and having amazing work is one thing, but in order to make money out of it and to make a career out of it, relationships is really important. You need to get yourself out there, meet people, keep in touch with your peer group who are doing the same thing, go to events, go put your stuff in for awards, competitions, go to networking stuff, go to as much stuff as you're able to, because those people you meet now will also be continuing the journey. I've met people, you know, 10 years ago who I started working with who are now winning Emmys and things like that, and I'm still in touch with them. So keep those relationships going. And making connections, yeah, again, you know, so many ways now with social media that you don't even have to go out, but make connections, that's really critical. We had a girl who came to us, and I wouldn't recommend this approach, but she kind of knocked the door down, didn't she, to get through. She made up some weird story about coming into the building, and then when she was in, she started showing us all the stuff, and I thought, well, that's actually quite rude and a bit annoying, but at the same time, your work is absolutely amazing, so that was quite clever. Yeah, but I wouldn't recommend that one.
So from me, I just wanted to acknowledge that I think for a lot of people, choosing what's next is actually quite difficult, and I find it quite a stressful decision when I was in education, knowing how to make a decision as to what I wanted to study next and what career to pursue. And it seemed like from quite a young age, everyone was expecting me to have it all mapped out. So I just wanted to offer some reassurance that actually some people don't know, and that's okay. And I think to some extent I'm still figuring out what I'm good at and what I enjoy the most. So I guess my advice in that area is to talk to as many people as you can and listen to their advice. Do as much work experience as you possibly can. Just get yourself in those environments, even if it's just shadowing people and making cups of tea, just so you can listen to what's going on and get a feel for whether you enjoy it or not, and ultimately choose something that you enjoy, and have confidence that by doing something you enjoy, you'll find success with that. Also, plan B isn't a cop-out. So I went to university thinking I was going to be a designer, and then things changed. I had to realign where I was going, and at the time you sort of think, oh, is this the right decision? But I think to acknowledge that actually you're in a better position where you understand yourself better, you know what you're good at, and you know what you enjoy. To change where you're going next is by no means a weakness, and there are generally transferable skills that you can take with you, whether they're sort of technical skills or more softer social skills. And my final thing that I just wanted to end on is make yourself invaluable. So when I did start at Spinning Clock, or wherever you sort of end up, I literally started from the bottom up. I tidied out the stationery cupboard. I did a lot of shredding. I did a lot of answering the phone. And I learnt a lot, got stuck in and got my hands dirty, and yeah, just that sort of idea of it's a very competitive industry. Managers get inundated with CVs, so just be persistent, make yourself memorable, and try and get yourself in a position where you are really genuinely contributing to projects and teamwork so that you become ingrained in that culture. So I think that's it from us. Yeah, thanks very much for listening. Does anyone have any questions?
See, that's Buddy the dog.
Oh yeah, and that's Buddy.
That's Buddy, our office dog, just in case you're wondering why we put that up there.
Yeah, does anyone want to ask any questions?
Yeah. I mean, we have, we do that kind of stuff. It's on a like an individual basis, but so yeah, we could definitely arrange something like that. I'll give you a card and you can drop us an email. But yeah, certainly. I think what we try and do as well is find out what people want to get out of it as well, because some people will want to do some work, other people want to shadow people, and so yeah, that's definitely something we could do. Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's a really good question. I personally, I would say sometimes less is more. I mean, again, it depends what stage you're at. You might not have acres and acres of stuff to show, but sometimes we get people coming in and they've got like a portfolio this deep, and the first 4 things are really, really amazing. You're like, wow. But then the further you go down, you're like, why are you showing me this? So I would say maybe 10 things that you think are the best things, and also stress what you did in that piece of work, because we get a lot of people sharing work, and actually when we drill down to it, all they did was the typography, the idea was somebody else, the illustration was somebody else, all that kind of thing. So stress what you did, and like, the top 10 things you've done. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be stuff you've done academically. It could be something outside. I think that was one of the other things I wanted to say, like, if you're creative, often you're doing stuff outside of academia or outside of the work, and if you think that's relevant to the position, just show that as well. Because I think just seeing how creative somebody is in general is often really impressive. So just on that, we had someone come to our office, shows a portfolio, and then almost as a finishing thing, she said, oh, I also run an illustration magazine. And then she pulled this thing out. I was like, wow, that's amazing. Why don't you start with that? So that's kind of some advice, I think. Yeah. Cheers.